I have with me the Member of Parliament of Sri Lanka, Harsha Silva. Thank you for joining us, sir. So we're seeing that Sri Lanka is going through one of the most unprecedented economic crises and a political turmoil. We've seen that Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe has taken charge, but even now the uncertainty on whether he will be able to get the confidence still remains. And you, and your party have said that you will not be, supporting the president's request as such, but will work towards the economic growth of the country. So how do you see this political scenario right now, sir?
It is a very complex situation, and we all understand that everyone has responsibility by this nation to rescue it from further calamity. So that is why our political party has offered to be a part of a national government on the condition that the president is able to offer some sort of time frame to abolish the office of the executive presidency and his stepping down. Now this is the demand by the people. This whole country is asking for Gota to go, right? And we realize it is not that easy, and we are not asking him to go tomorrow. It's just, let us find some space to work with. So if there is some movement in that direction, certainly we would be able to form a truly all-party, non-political interim government. But without any movement from the president, our party is unable to do that. And in that case, what we will do is to support the Wickremesinghe government on its efforts to revive Sri Lanka's economy by staying in the opposition and supporting it. So there is no way in which we are going to scuttle Mr. Wickremesinghe, and I want to be very clear, right? But if they want us to be in government and take cabinet, then he will have to convince the president on the basic condition that the country is asking for.
And sir, we're seeing that Sajid Premadasa had also written a letter to the president stating that he was interested to take up the prime ministerial post on the 4 conditions that he had given. But we're seeing that Gotabaya Rajapaksa did not take that into consideration. He said that it was a very delayed response. But do you think that there are other factors that played in for the reason that Ranil Wickremesinghe was chosen as the prime minister?
Yes, there is no time limit, you see. And the leader of the opposition commands the most number of seats in parliament, in the opposition. So it is the accepted custom in the parliamentary tradition that he is the one who is offered, right? And the story that it was late, what do you mean late? There was no one appointed, and the letter was with him, and even after getting the letter, he appointed somebody else. So therefore, I'm not going to buy that story at all. But let me go further. 3 days prior to that, me personally and 3 others from our political party discussed this with the president for 2 hours and 15 minutes. And what was discussed was what is in that letter, which does not ask him to step down immediately. You see? So there were no new conditions that were in that letter outside of what we discussed with him as an official discussion with the president and our political party. So the reason for appointing Mr. Wickremesinghe is beyond the letter and the timing of that letter. That's just for public consumption.
And so we're seeing that the relationship that the Rajapakshas had with the people of the country, and now the dynamics have completely changed. Why do you think this kind of response has happened? The crisis that we're seeing in the country, whom do you hold responsible? Is it just the Rajapakshas or more?
No, I hold the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his government, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, his brothers, extended family, totally responsible for this absolute calamity, taking this country to the abyss, creating, misery for the people, they are responsible. And I am not saying there was no problem before they came to office. There were problems. And don't also forget, since 1994, their camp has been holding executive office. Whether it was Madam Chandrika, whether it was Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, or Mr. Maitripala Sirisena, or Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, they are all in that political camp. Right? So if mistakes were made, it was made during that period. Right? I am not trying to say other political parties, our political party didn't contribute. Yes, right? Bad political decisions have been made. But the trigger for this collapse was actually the totally imaginable tax cut that emptied the treasury's coffers and then printing money to fill that void. And the other was I don't know why the overnight ban of the importation of chemical fertilizer, which completely destroyed agriculture. So you bring those two in, this is the result. And then obviously people's anger started brewing, the protest started happening, and Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, letting loose thugs on innocent protesters and beating them up, women included, created an unexpected by them reaction by the people, where the thugs were massacred essentially, right? Buses burned, and I feel very bad because people lost life and property. Nobody needs that to happen in this country. We abhor violence. We don't want violence in this country, right? But that was the reaction. So many people lost their homes, and forget homes, lives, right? So who did that? Who did that? Right? So people are now completely against the Rajapaksas.
And sir, we also want to know the Chinese angle in this. China has been a good supporter for Sri Lanka for quite some time, but we also know the kind of pressure that the country and its companies have put you in, the kind of debt that you hold with China. How is that into play? There are many structures that have been erected in Sri Lanka which now are unused, and all of them were Chinese-sponsored money.
Well, this is a typical Indian question. Let me tell you that, first of all. You see, what is done is done, right? We can't undo these projects now. What we can do is to figure a way out of the debt that needs to be paid on these and other projects over the next so many years. We can't pay it. So we need to restructure it. So we need to now figure out how to talk with the Chinese and come to a solution, some middle ground somewhere where we can manage to make our debt repayment sustainable, right? So that is what I'm looking at, because there's no point in going back. You can't change the past.
And sir, now, there is no roadmap which has been clearly laid out to come out of this economic crisis. Even Ranil Wickremesinghe, while speaking to us, had just said that we are chalking out a map, we are going to appoint ministers. But how do you think will that be reciprocated, sir? Because right now, outside Temple Tree also, we are seeing sit-in protests.
See, I wish Mr. Wickremesinghe spoke to all the political parties before, he, in our view, not the right way, assumed the office of the Prime Minister. Be that as it may, I don't disagree with his plan going forward. The kind of reforms that he's talking about, the long-term restructuring of the economy are things that need to be done.